Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, and I'm here to share with you my official review for the newest film from Christopher Nolan, simply known as Tenet. Now, this movie has a pretty awesome cast starring actors like John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, and Kenneth Branagh. And this is perhaps an exciting day because after months of not being able to go to the movie theater, this is like the first movie I've been able to review in months, since before the pandemic hit. I believe the last movie I actually reviewed was probably Sonic, so yeah, I was really excited to see this one. Now, just to guys give you a little bit of a backup, Christopher Nolan is my favorite director of all time. He has been since his movie The Prestige. He has created my favorite comic book based movie of all time in The Dark Knight. He has also created my favorite movie of all time, Inception, and as rightly so, Tenet could be easily compared to Inception in a number of ways. And I can tell you this right now, right out of the gate, I did happen to enjoy Tenet overall. But to go a little bit more into detail, I'll explain a couple of elements, or just my initial thoughts on the film, having seen it yesterday and having had an entire night to think about it. So, the plot of Tenet, without really getting into much spoilers, because I can't even say much without telling you something that might be a spoiler, but to simplify it, the main character's job, who he's not even given a name, he just goes by the protagonist. Apparently, he was an agent at one point and then supposedly dies and then gets brought back in order to join this group of people that work with a technology called inversion, which causes things in places to revert backwards in time, and he needs to work with other people in order to stop Kenneth Branagh's character from using something that might cause the end of the world. That is really all I can say about the film without getting into more spoilers, and I think I might have said something that might have been a spoiler, so I apologize, but it couldn't be too severe. Now, I'm going to say this right now. Christopher Nolan is a truly incredible director for a number of reasons. He is very, very consistent. He likes to kind of top himself with every new film. And I can say that from a technical point of view, he very much does it with Tenet in terms of filmmaking and cinematography and just how things are visually seen on the screen. This is an impressive film to watch. I'm going to get the good out of the way. Number one, I think the performances from all the characters is handled very, very well. I wouldn't say any one character has a standout performance or really stands apart from me, but I will say that Kenneth Branagh's character does chew up the screen every time he shows up, and he has this level of intensity that I didn't even see coming from his character. I mean, he's obviously the bad guy from the first moment you meet him, but he has this kind of subtleness about his character, and I thought that if he had stayed like that, that would have been perfectly okay. But out of nowhere, his character goes from like a 50 to like a 100 in his level of intensity, which I didn't even see coming. But I'm like, whoa, what is up with this character? But it is pretty interesting to see on screen. I would say probably my favorite character in the film was Robert Pattinson's character, the character Neil. And I'm going to say this right now. For any of you that hold any sort of negative thoughts towards this man because of his Twilight days, get that out of the way. He is really good in this film, and I think he's going to do a fantastic job being the next Batman. Those Twilight days are gone. It's time to move forward. He is a legitimately good actor, and he has my support moving forward for however long he chooses to go. And that's really all I want to say in terms of the characters. Now, the action set pieces in this film are just visually impressive to see. And it's kind of creative because you have events that are moving forward and you have events that are moving backwards. And just to kind of see how they interact and how they intersect is kind of interesting. There's even this one scene that you've actually seen in the trailer where there's this one building that is blowing up moving forward while also being blowing up going backwards. And I think there are plenty of shots that do that. And I think that the technology itself and how things are visually shown from different perspectives is really going to throw a lot of people off and impress people. And another thing that I also thought was really, really impressive is kind of how everything has certain connections and has certain loops. This is absolutely a true Christopher Nolan film. This is a film that you need to pay attention to. There is so much attention detail that is important that if you blink, you might miss something. If you go to the bathroom for 2 or 3 minutes, you'll probably miss a big chunk of information that is going to play a massive part in things that will happen later on into the film. Now, as great as this film is from a viewing point of view and from just a cinematic point of view, this movie is not perfect. There are some clear problems that have been present in older Christopher Nolan films, but it's really more present here. The biggest issue I have with this film, especially in the first half, is the sound mixing. Now, this is something that happened in Interstellar, but for this film, it happens too often to the point where if there were 3 layers of sound in terms of dialogue, sound effects, or background sound effects, and music, for whatever reason, he has this tendency to place the dialogue in the third part. Meaning that several times, at least in the first half, dialogue is kind of overwhelmed to the point where you can't even hear what they're saying. They're probably saying something that is important, but because the sound effects and the music are drowning out, I can't tell what they are saying. And it's not even during action set pieces. It is just during scenes where people are just sitting down talking, and I cannot understand what they're saying. This is the type of film that when I get the Blu-ray, I'm going to have to watch again with subtitles just so I can find out what this character said, because they probably said something that is going to come into play later on in the film. Number 2, I had a very difficult time getting connections with the characters themselves, because we don't get to know much about them, especially the protagonist, which we know the least amount. Now, compare him to someone like, say, Leonardo DiCaprio's Cobb character, in which you know what he does, you know about his backstory, and you know why he is doing what he is doing. And it is a very noble purpose. Therefore, it makes it easier to connect with his character. But we don't get anything with the protagonist's character at all. We're not giving a name. We're not giving anything about his background. We don't know anything about him. So even though he is the main focus, it made it very difficult for me to connect with his character. And when you have a character like that, that is the main focus of everything that is going on, it does make it a little bit hard to connect with the film. And another thing that is going to really make it very difficult and might make this movie a bit hard for some people is the complexity of it. Because there is so much inversion, there are things that are moving forward in time and there are things that are moving backwards. It makes it very, very difficult to keep track of who exactly is doing what at certain times and when they are intersecting, when they're trying to avoid intersecting with each other. When I woke up this morning after thinking about it, I watched 3 different explained videos that explained how certain things were supposed to go in this film. So when I walked out of this film by myself, I understood about 60% of what happened in this entire film. After watching these explained videos, it went from 60% to 80%. There is still a good 20% of this film that I still do not fully understand, because of how things are constantly moving. Because imagine, now Mementos is probably one of the most complicated films I've seen, but they do a good job of separating what is happening in the present and what is happening in the past and how things are intersecting. And it is very, very easy to follow. Imagine that, but with certain events and certain characters moving in opposite directions at the same time. When that movie is doing that several different times, especially in certain moments, it gets very, very confusing to follow. And therefore, it made it very, very frustrating because the movie does not slow down. When it comes to Christopher Nolan films, they do not slow down. You need to catch up to his pace. And that is going to be very, very frustrating for people who probably cannot process things that quickly, even when it is slowly explained to you. And the movie never takes that time to explain certain things. So while I did overall enjoy this film, this is absolutely a movie that I will have to see at least 2 more times. But I am not willing to go to theaters and pay money to see it 2 more times in theaters. I'll probably have to wait to get this in Blu-ray and then watch it 2 or 3 more times when I get it on my own with subtitles so I can see if I miss things in the first half. So ultimately, while I did enjoy this film by the end, this was probably one of the more frustrating films that I've seen from Christopher Nolan in order to follow. And this is coming from someone that was able to go into Inception and understand it in first going. And this is a thought-provoking movie that requires you to have to follow things as they go and pay attention to detail. And Tenet was too much for me. And this is the type of movie that I would prefer to see. I like movies that force me to have to actually pay attention and challenge my mind and pay attention to detail. And this was too much for me. And I would openly say that just from an overall experience point of view, this is probably going to be a film that I would place on the lower half of my favorite set of Christopher Nolan films, because he's never made a bad film, and this is by far not a bad film. Overall, it is a great film cinematically and technically, But from just a story and understanding point of view, this was a lot harder to understand than any Christopher Nolan film that I have seen to date. But I still enjoyed it by the end. But I think that is going to be a problem for a lot of people that do go into this film and have no intention on seeing it a second or even third time. So if I had to give Tenet a rating, overall, I'm going to give Tenet a B. Definitely see it in theaters just because of how visually impressive it is, but just be ready to be very, very confused and have a lot of things that just go by so fast because you are going to miss something. There is no way anyone is going to go into this film and walk out of it, out of the first viewing, understanding everything. It is definitely going to take a couple of more watches before you fully grasp everything that is happening, and that is the same for me. So that is my review of Tenet. If you happen to see this movie and enjoyed it, I would like to hear your thoughts and share them with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and press the subscribe button if you happen to enjoy this review by the end. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.